Nestled in the quiet town of Boone, North Carolina, the Durham family murder case puzzled investigators and captivated true crime enthusiasts for nearly 5 decades. On February 3, 1972, a brutal and mysterious crime shook the small mountain community. The victims, Bryce Durham, his wife Virginia, and their son Bobby Joe, were found murdered in their home during a fierce blizzard. Despite an immediate investigation, the case went cold for nearly half a century, until new revelations in 2019 finally brought a sense of closure. Yet lingering questions about the motive and mastermind behind the attack continue to haunt the case. The Durham family was well known in Boone, a picturesque town nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Bryce Durham, aged 51, had recently achieved his lifelong dream of opening his own car dealership, Boone's Buick, after relocating from Mount Airy, North Carolina. Virginia, his 46-year-old wife, worked alongside Bryce in the dealership, and their 18-year-old son, Bobby Joe, was a freshman at Appalachian State University. The family also had a 19-year-old daughter, Jenny Sue, who lived nearby with her husband, Troy Hall. The Durhams were regarded as a hard-working, respectable family. Bryce, a community figure through his business and involvement with the Rotary Club, was admired for his perseverance and dedication. Virginia, warm and supportive, kept the family tight-knit. Bobby Joe, just beginning his adult life, showed promise at university. Together, they represented the quintessential American family, living a seemingly peaceful and prosperous life in Boone. However, beneath this facade of tranquility, an unimaginable horror was about to unfold, forever changing their lives and the fabric of the small town. The fateful night. On the evening of February 3, 1972, a fierce snowstorm struck Boone, with 40-mile-per-hour winds and several inches of snow making travel treacherous. Bryce had spent the evening attending a Rotary Club meeting at the Appalachian Ski Mountain Resort. The meeting was attended by members of the U.S. Army Special Forces, known as the Green Berets, who were visiting the area. Due to the storm, attendance at the meeting was sparse, and Bryce left the event early with a friend. The two men returned to Bryce's car dealership, where Virginia and Bobby Joe were waiting. The family planned to head home together around 8:30 p.m., driving the family's green and white SUV, a vehicle better suited for the snowy roads. At approximately 10:30 p.m., while Jenny Sue and her husband Troy were relaxing at their nearby home, the phone rang unexpectedly. Troy answered to hear the frantic voice of his mother-in-law, Virginia. She was clearly in distress, telling him in a panicked tone, "They have Bryce and Bobby." Before Troy could respond or get more information, the line went dead. Initially, Troy thought it might be a prank call, but Jenny, convinced by her mother's desperation, knew something was terribly wrong. Troy attempted to start his car to rush to the Durham home, but due to the snowstorm, his vehicle wouldn't start. Desperate for assistance, he sought help from a neighbor, Cecil Small, who worked as a private detective. Together with Cecil, Troy and Jenny Sue drove through the worsening snowstorm toward the Durham residence. The heavy snow and icy roads made their journey treacherous, but nothing could have prepared them for the horror that awaited them at the Durham home, a grim discovery. Upon arriving at the Durham residence on Clyde Townsend Road, Troy Hall and Cecil Small were immediately struck by the unsettling scene that greeted them. The house was in utter disarray, with furniture askew and personal belongings scattered across the floor, creating a stark contrast to the usually orderly home. One of the first things they noticed was a telephone that had been violently ripped from the wall, a clear indication that something terrible had unfolded within the walls of the family home. Concern and dread filled the air as they made their way through the house, knowing that their loved ones were inside. Their worst fears were confirmed when they entered the bathroom. What they found was nothing short of horrific. The bodies of Bryce, Virginia, and their son Bobby Joe were submerged in the bathtub, fully clothed, and with their hands bound tightly behind their backs. The chilling image was compounded by the fact that their heads were under water, and the sound of running water echoed in the background as the bathtub continued to overflow, partially flooding the bathroom and beyond. This gruesome tableau sent shockwaves through the small, tight-knit community of Boone, North Carolina, leaving neighbors and friends grappling with disbelief and horror. Following the gruesome discovery, autopsies were conducted to determine the cause of death. The results revealed that Bryce and Bobby had been brutally strangled before being drowned, while Virginia had also been strangled but had not been submerged. In addition to the strangulation, both Bryce and Virginia had sustained severe blunt force trauma, Bryce suffering a crushing blow to the head and Virginia enduring a vicious strike to her face. These findings indicated that the attackers had employed extreme violence to overpower their victims. Investigators estimated that the heinous murders likely occurred within a narrow window of time, approximately 30 minutes prior to Troy and Cecil's arrival, a chilling reminder of how quickly tragedy can strike a seemingly ordinary evening. Initial investigation and theories. The investigation into the Durham family murders was immediately hindered by the severe winter storm, which made it difficult for authorities to gather evidence quickly. The green and white SUV that Bryce had driven home was missing from the property, adding another layer of mystery. A few hours later, the vehicle was found abandoned in a ditch about 3 miles from the house. Strangely, the engine was still running, the headlights were on, and the windshield wipers were moving. Inside the SUV, authorities discovered a pillowcase stuffed with silverware, leading investigators to initially believe that robbery might have been the motive. However, the robbery theory quickly began to crumble. Inside the Durham home, a bank deposit box remained untouched, even though it was left in plain sight, an obvious target for a thief. The silverware in the SUV seemed more like a staged attempt to mislead investigators rather than a genuine robbery. Detectives now faced a troubling possibility. The murders might have been driven by a far more sinister motive than mere theft. Authorities combed through the Durham's personal and financial records, seeking possible enemies or business disputes that might have triggered such a brutal attack. Bryce's car dealership was scrutinized for any ties to organized crime or unresolved financial matters. Investigators also considered whether the murders might have been the result of a failed business venture or a personal grudge. However, no substantial evidence emerged to support these theories. With few leads, the case gradually grew cold. Fingerprints collected from the crime scene did not match any known offenders, and although 4 men were arrested in connection with the murders, all were released without charge. As months turned into years, the case faded into the background, becoming one of the many unsolved crimes in North Carolina's history. The breakthrough in 2019. For nearly 47 years, the Durham family murders remained an unsolved mystery, until a breakthrough came in 2019 when a man named Shane Burt contacted authorities in White County, Georgia. Shane was conducting research for a book on notorious true crime cases in Georgia when he shared a shocking revelation about his father, Billy Sunday Burt, a member of the infamous Dixie Mafia. The Dixie Mafia was a loosely organized network of criminals operating throughout the southeastern United States during the 1960s and 1970s. Involved in murder, robbery, and a host of other violent crimes, the group was notorious for its ruthless approach to eliminating anyone who stood in its way. Billy Sunday Burt, one of the most feared members of the organization, had confided in his son during a prison visit, telling Shane, I was very close with my father, and he admitted to killing 3 people in the North Carolina mountains during a heavy snowstorm, remembering that they almost got caught. This revelation would prove to be the key to cracking the decades-old cold case. The White County Sheriff's Office contacted the Watauga County Sheriff's Office in May 2019 about Shane's information. In September 2019, Sheriff Len Hageman and his team investigated new leads and interviewed Billy Wayne Davis, who was serving a life sentence for other crimes in Georgia. In the interviews, Davis implicated Burt, Gaddis, and Reed, saying they were part of a hired hit in the North Carolina mountains. However, it remains a mystery who ordered the hit. Davis claimed that they almost got caught during the snowstorm, asserting that he acted as the getaway driver that fateful night while the 3 other men entered the house. Investigators corroborated evidence from the crime scene with information from 2 additional sources. They also noted that the circumstances of the Durham murders bore similarities to a 1973 investigation in Georgia known as the Fleming case, which Burt, Gaddis, Reed, and Davis had also been involved in. In November, the Watauga County Sheriff's Office alerted the Durham family about the findings. Jenny Durham, the slain couple's daughter, expressed her gratitude to investigators. "I would like to thank all of the people who worked for decades on my family's case. I know that they sacrificed many days and weekends in order to work on solving this case since 1972. She said, noting that some officers continued to work on the case even in retirement. Sheriff Hageman remarked, "This is a much-needed turning point for the Durham case. We cannot begin to express our thanks to all the professionals and community members who collaborated for so many years to help resolve this case. I know I also speak for the entire Watauga County community when I say that we will never forget to keep the Durham family in our thoughts and prayers." Multiple agencies, including the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, the Boone Police Department, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and the Appalachian State University Police Department, were also involved in the case. Unanswered questions and lingering mysteries. The identification of the killers brought a long-awaited sense of closure to the Durham family, but it also raised new questions that remain unanswered to this day. Chief among them is the motive. Who ordered the hit, and why was the Durham family chosen as the targets? Investigators have speculated that the killings might have been related to a financial dispute or a failed business deal, but no definitive evidence has surfaced to support this theory. Jenny Sue, who lost her parents and brother in the horrific crime, expressed her gratitude to law enforcement for their decades-long commitment to solving the case. In a statement, she acknowledged the tireless efforts of the officers who had worked through countless challenges, even in retirement, to bring her family some measure of peace. Sheriff Len Hageman of Watauga County also highlighted the significance of the case's resolution, stating, "This is a much-needed turning point for the Durham case. We cannot begin to express our thanks to all the professionals and community members who collaborated for so many years to help resolve this case. Despite the killers being identified, the case remains clouded in mystery. The true mastermind behind the murders and the exact motive for such a brutal attack continue to elude investigators. Without more information, the full story of why the Durhams were targeted may never be known." The Durham family murders stand as one of North Carolina's most tragic and baffling crimes. For nearly half a century, the brutal slaying of Bryce, Virginia, and Bobby Joe haunted the town of Boone, leaving residents and investigators grappling with unanswered questions. Although the identification of the killers in 2019 brought some measure of closure, the case remains far from fully resolved. The motive behind the senseless attack on an unsuspecting family may forever remain a mystery, a chilling reminder of how fragile the line between safety and danger can be. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the tragic Durham family murder case. It's a haunting reminder of how quickly life can change and the importance of seeking justice for those who can no longer speak for themselves. If you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe for more true crime content. Your support helps keep these important stories alive. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.